ξανά μαζί για την τελευταία.
We are back for the last discussion, a new approach to the existing urban planning context. We are pleased to have with us Panagiotis Pikramenos, former President, MP of Greece, and I would like to invite him on the stage. And we are honored because we have with us Mr. Athanasoulis, governor of the Decanis, Nikos Zorzos, the mayor of Thera of Santorini. Thank you, mayor. The governor of the South Aegean, Mr. Hatzimarkos, and the discussion moderated by Nektaria Stamouli from eKathimerini. Good afternoon. I'm pleased to be with you to moderate this discussion. We've had a lot on the urban side planning in the previous panels. So let me start with a question to set the framework of it. The urban siting plan was submitted immediately after the consultation. It was withdrawn due to the civil society reactions, and there's still a delay in all those bills of laws. The government is not willing. There are further reaction from the society. Mr. Pikramenos. I'm not a member of the government as of last year, so I haven't got direct insight. I can simply express my personal views, but I need to tell you that I don't know the reasons of such delay. I haven't got inside info. The urban plan on tourism was withdrawn because it received remarks concerning insufficient preparation. Many people were against and disagreed, amongst other the competent organs, and I believe that the government was right in withdrawing it and in order to elaborate it from the beginning. So concerning the urban plan on tourism itself, it would be better to define it from the very beginning of the discussion, because it sets the conditions for a good development of tourism. Mr. Athanasoulis, before answering your question, let me congratulate eKathimerini on having this opportunity. It is extremely important, the topic for Greece, because it relates to the way we need to consider a significant factor which impacts not only Greek economy but the Greek life, so that it becomes sustainable. So this is an excellent opportunity, an excellent initiative, and I'd like to thank you for inviting me to join this discussion, this conference. Now allow me to say that I feel a bit awkward because I'm the only one as an archaeologist to speak and discuss cultural heritage. We have with us mainly businessmen, so I would like to put forward the historical dimension on the topic. Tourism is not only a financial volume, it represents many other things. It is a multifarious phenomenon with different impacts or multiple impacts on the Greek life by and large, positive most of them. And let us not forget the words of our Prime Minister concerning the development of the demographic development of the islands. The governor, the only you've been having a significant demographical development thanks to tourism in your region. Tourism is a tool thanks to which we have a mobility of people, which creates rather abolishes prejudice. Imagine how many Turks visit our islands and vice versa. So it creates mobility corridors, and it has multiple impacts, not only on a sector, but in different sectors. And again, we should not forget that tourism is a phenomenon, a recent one, born in the 90s, democratized in the 20th. So essentially we are speaking of a trend, and it is unknown how it may develop. Discussing its positive impact, this trend needs to be fed, and this is our work, to feed it correctly so as to ensure its future. One way in doing so is to settle all urban issues relevant to tourism, and as our MP said yesterday, there shall be a protection of the landscape and the environment in all our islands while developing tourism. Mr. Zorzos, well, the many years awaited urban plan was there at some point, which is important for the development of all areas. Attending the developments in the island of Santorini, I would say that in the 60s, the government, being aware of the particular geopolitical landscape, protected by law the caldera. Later on, it moved forward and declared the entire site protected due to the extreme natural beauty. In the 90s, we had the very first effort to settle the urban site by defining residential zones. And in 2012, following my personal initiative, we had an amendment of the presidential decree on urban control zones, and 2 points were improved significantly. The first one, the caldera area is outside any zone, so it can't be constructed. And second one, all rural products were considered protected, as vineyards and other cultivations could not change, their land could not change use. So I say so to indicate the need for urban planning, and however, despite this effort, still the situation is chaotic on the island for the following reasons. The general approach of the Bill of Law and the lack of monitoring and control mechanisms. Concerning the urban plan, the recent one, which was discussed at local authority level at both stages, it is true that it didn't satisfy either party, not those wishing for further business development, nor those who were looking for sustainable development, so they didn't want the landscape to be destroyed and consumed. As for Santorini, personally, I have discussed and proposed not a single cubic meter of cement in the future. Well, for all those reasons, I would say that it is good that it was withdrawn to be improved. However, it is highly required and it must be brought to consultation very soon. Good afternoon. Concerning urban planning, in the past years in our country, well, everything got unrevealed and the entire awkwardness and embarrassment of decades was brought into light. And I say embarrassment, which is a polite word, whereas I could have described it in a different negative way. A tango between politicians, this is how we describe it, and the peoples. They've danced it all together, they've enjoyed it, but now everything is revealed. After the 75 Constitution, when everybody believed that everything described as an obligation in the Constitution would be soon implemented, we come to 24 years later at 99, and then we jumped into today. What was the fate of this urban plan and the intentions? And I'll speak strictly about my region. Paradoxically enough, I see that in the public debate, all urban plans are of interest. However, we discuss only the South Aegean region plan. Out of 1,000 articles involving everything, 95 touch upon a single region and 5 embracing all others. It appears that all other regions are models, that they represent good practices, and I wish I could copy them. Anyway, let me discuss South Aegean and why we expressed our view openly on this urban plan on tourism. It had regulatory provisions. It involved which is not supposed to be so. There should be guidelines, however, it had regulatory provisions. Second, it involved horizontal solutions and provisions covering the all Greek regions. We were not looking for a better way to be managed. Oftentimes the political system embraces the concept of public automation, the rich, the poor, and such kind of generalization. We do not wish to be treated differently, but in terms of our issues, we want them to be scientifically approached and nothing else, just a single criterion. And I'll put forward 2 examples. Apologies if you are from Drama, but the prefecture of Drama, where we have open land, let us compare it with Sikinos. How can we compare them? Impossible. So, correctly, the Bill of Law was withdrawn to be corrected. And a second observation, which relates only to South Aegean, the Deccanese and Cyclades. How can we have it in place without having the regional urban plan of South Aegean, which should come first. We haven't got it on the government gazette. As for the delay of decades, the political system was dancing this fantastic tango, and all parties have been in office, so nobody could say that it wasn't involved in this dance. For the first time, we have a government which appeared to be operating as if the political risk didn't exist. We are all there, very strict. Why such delay? Why such thing or the other? And I say, thanks God, there's a government decades later to put an order on an issue that involves an enormous political cost to manage, in other words, such issues. Everything is in line. Urban planning and other specific plans are in progress, and I know that because Greece has issues and problems. We are interested and we are focused on our region because who knows, maybe we despise success. This is a typical, I would say, Greek attitude because we envy the one progressing and we want to surpass him, her. Well, fortunately, we are expecting some kind of order because we are protecting public space. We know that things are in delay, and now that there's a political system bold enough, a government, and Kyriakos Mitsotakis in particular, who ignores this enormous political cost and moves forward courageously, well, we are okay, and whenever we are against, we propose and we discuss our views in the consultation. Well, the particular piece of law appeared to be obsolete, and this is why we rejected it, went back. We'll see whether it has been modernized. So no horizontal concept. This is a scientific approach, no scientific regulation. One size doesn't fit all. Mr. Pikramenos, you've got a personal relation with the Cyclades, you've got a house on the Cyclades, and I assume you are very familiar with the islands. So how you experience this change? And now that everything is revealed, how do you believe that the situation may change?
Experience this very pleasantly, and I think we will limit the discussion to the Cycladic Islands, and I agree that we are mainly dealing with the Cyclades. It's one of the prettiest places in the world, and I've been to all Cycladic Islands. I do not agree completely with what the governor of the region said. I do agree that this government has done more than any other government, and I can even illustrate that with examples. However, governor of the region, there are so many zones of control, even on your island and Mykonos and Zia. What is the result? What does the law say? And what happens in the act? Tell me. So the rules is not the problem. We have those rules for a long time. And the rules are there because they are imposed on us by the EU. And Interreg, with the first zoning plans, was paid by the EU. So these zoning plans at the era of Semitis were never implemented for political reasons. When they finally were implemented, because the EU threatened and asked for its money back, then they had nothing to do with the reality. And the reality today has nothing to do with what they say in the residential control zones. So they say, for example, that you cannot build on the top of the mountain, but all the houses are built on top of the mountains. It says that it is prohibited. Nice rocks are forest area, but they break all the rocks. It is forbidden to open roads. You can go now with a drone in the Cyclades, and you will see this is not the problem of a government. This happens for many years. And what is the problem? The problem is that we cannot implement the laws. Why does that happen? We don't know who is responsible for the implementation of the laws, if it is the governor of the region, the urban planning department, the government, the mayor. Why aren't laws implemented? Because there is not enough workforce in order to implement the law, and this is the good scenario. There is not enough police, there is not enough urban planning control, and maybe from time to time, and I do not want to talk about the government of Mitsotakis, this or the previous one. Maybe there hasn't been any political will. Caldera, that you talk about, Mayor, is full of pools, swimming pools. How that happened? I went to the Ministry of the Environment and I saw them. They were not there by miracle. And if there is an earthquake, they will all come down. So the problem, at least according to me, to my humble opinion, it's not the existing legal framework, but how this legal framework can be implemented and imposed. And this government has shown in many ways that its intentions are to implement the laws, and they actually proved that with Mykonos. And I'm sorry to talk about Mykonos. I spent a good time in Mykonos. My friends in Mykonos are very good friends of mine. The whole issue started with Paros and beaches there, and then it rolled out, it scattered around. Well, it's a problem not to be able to speak about things that we like and in order to make them better. Tourism is a financial product. It has become a financial business product, and we need to implement rules. There's a conflict of interest, and these interests must be balanced. The person who can balance the interest, because it's a different interest for the one who has a big hotel, and other interest is the one of the small hotel. So there must be some kind of order there, and we should not ignore visitors, etc. Thank you, Mr. Athanasoulis. There's this feeling that since other services don't do as much as it is required, your service has undertaken a disproportional weight. So, how do you do your work? Has everything changed after last year's incident? I think that the president talked about violation issues, that there is no possibility to fully control Cyclades or the Dodecanese. So there we must have our public service, which is decentralized, to carry most of the weight in order to implement the law. and the order. But this has side effects because this creates a sense, an impression that the archaeology department, for example, is an inhibition, that archaeologists are very rigid and they cannot see how development and culture may coexist. On the other hand, we should not forget that the archaeology department is based on a framework that deprives proprietary rights from owners and possibilities, business possibilities from undertakings. But this has been established by state laws. So part of the archaeology service is the administrative check and protection of the landscape. This is important. This is what preserves monuments and their environment. And it's the one that gave to modern Greece what we sell. What do we sell today? What was saved and preserved by the archaeological service. So the tourist sites are the archaeological sites where a law was rigidly complied with. So the archaeology service has a very complex way about approaching and supporting tourism, because we do digs, we find, we restore. All that gives added value to Greece and upgrades the tourist product and the experience of a visitor on the islands. I would also say that we should always see the big picture, within which archaeological service plays a determining role in many things, not only one. It is obvious that there are some extremes, but today we are on an inclusive track compared to other structures that support tourism. Tourism is visitors. Monuments are there due to visitors. So we have Delos, Montesmir, and Acropolis in Rhodes. The objective is to attract visitors and tourists. If we wanted to accomplish our duty vis-à-vis our inheritance, it is to develop tourist inflows in a qualitative way in order for them to come and enjoy the values. Do you think that things have improved with archaeology effort servants? Are they supported enough to do what they have to? After last year's negative incident, we got the possibility to go on doing our job without any fear. Mr. Giorgio, you also talked about the suspension of permitting in the zone of Caldera. There is a precondition to check all building permits till the end of 24. So I'd like to ask you, what will happen next? Do you think that the law will be implemented? Before I reply to this, I would like to comment on what Mr. Picrameno said and say that, of course, governments successively are responsible, because it is the governments that advertised, declare it and save it, for example. Then they voted laws about the legalization of unregulated constructions. So they cling the eye on those who wanted to violate the law. Those of us in the political system, we have this curse of the political cost. We must say all that if we want to be honest with each other. The second axis is the perception of modern Greek society and other societies about what is to our interests to destroy the beauty and make money, or preserve the beauty and then again earn money, but maybe not quick money. And this is the classical perception. If the classical culture serves beauty, then we preserve it all times. And you know, this is what the Bhutan Prime Minister actually said. I would also like to say something about the head of the effort of archaeology of cichlids and Dodecanese. I've said before that the Ministry of Culture in some cases has showed some generosity, but we don't know if this can actually work. We'll see what the urban planning department of Santorini will do with about checking all permits till the end of 2024. I don't think they will not be able to do that. And about Article 71, I believe that it is unfortunate to have this bill of law for reasons I cannot really understand. In the first zone, with the presidential decree of 2012, is not constructed. It doesn't need to be suspended to remain unconstructed, but there is one change of the limit of Zone A, and we expect to see if Article 71 will come back as it was presented, or if something is going to change. In any case, I don't think that Santorini Urban Planning Department will be able to do much. I think if they with more time and more people, maybe they could. So it's a question of time to comply with the law. You know, you must comply the law. With the law. You must implement legal provisions. I believe that we must try and change the perception of local societies about what is happiness. And I'm saying that, okay, it's different to each and every one of us. Yes, do you want quick results? Or are we looking something different? Can I ask a question to the mayor? Urban Planning Department is a department of your municipality. Yes, and I am a head. And so, and you are the one staffing the department. No, I wait for the government to approve the fact that I have to staff the service. Okay, so this is the impasse. There it is. Mr. Hadzimarko. Oh, another question. Can't I answer the previous ones? Am I excluded from this discussion? No, of course you can add anything you want. About the term of over-tourism, is it something that exists? It's a question of base, it's a question of management. Let me start by thanking Mr. Pikramenos. He is the only politician, you've been a politician, who stated that he has a nice time in Mykonos. I don't think that there is any other politician who declares that. The second is myself. So at my office, they are scanning, as you journalists say, the news about the islands, 10,000, and this is a precise number, 10,000 articles about Mykonos in Greece, and 9,914 are negative. In Greece, nobody's proud about Mykonos, however. Yeah, and this is why I thanked you. And I will say why. Mr. Eftichis, we are too. that are publicly proud about Mykonos. We all say, however, that spending is the objective. We want more spending in tourism, but Mykonos has a big spending compared to the rest of Greece, and the average Greek who wants to have spending, more spending, is we're not going to become Mykonos like Mykonos. So end of conversation, because this is the beautiful life in Greece. And I ask about Mykonos again. The fact that this island doesn't have a trace of public administration service, is it random? Is it by coincidence? For decades, there has never been a trace of a public administration service. Is that random? The tango was very well danced. So you're not describing a situation where we have to be proud. Let me tell you something. There are some things in tourism for which objectively you have to be proud if you love tourism. The fame, the reputation of Mykonos throughout the world, the brand of Mykonos is so powerful. We put McKinsey measure how powerful are the brands of our area. And when we saw this survey at my office, we're saying, "Why? What was that?" Brand Greece is lagging behind internationally. Brand Santorini and Mykonos are way forward. And in Greece, we do everything to bring them down. We need to protect the brand. You must work in order to solve the problems, but without making them public, being hysterical about them and inflating them. You can't do that. It's as if Mercedes comes here and publicize maybe a problem that they have. You work with the problem, you solve the problem, but you don't make a campaign against the most powerful tourist brands of Greece. And if we respect spending, and if we want spending, well, maybe they have something we can copy. We cannot condemn everything. 1,000 things are done there. It has good services to customers. This is something you can copy. It doesn't have to do with construction or unregulated constructions, etc. Let's go and do some historical recording. How many governments have never passed any law or decree about the legalization of unregulated buildings? Who has given asylum, immunity to people who build in an unregulated way? To me, it's so easy to say because we do not have any competence there. My friend, the mayor, is there with the urban planning department. There you have the circular, you can go and check all the building permits. And the question is, even if they're checked, you think that then there's not going to come any decree or something from the parliament or somebody else that will regulate and bring immunity to these people with some retroactive effect. I can tell you 1,000,000% that this will be the case. So we have to be very honest. Over tourism came to our lives lately. It's a new term. If we ask 10 different citizens what that means, they will not give us the same reply. It is a new concept. It came from Barcelona and Venice, where we have some such a phenomena, 360 days per year. Such a phenomena for a few days per year exist on our island. Yes, 12 days a year, 16 days a year, 22 days per year. We cannot even reach 30 days per year. Not even 30. This is why I can tell you that there is no over-tourism in the southern Aegean. The rest of Greece has solved and arranged it all. All the naughty neighborhoods are just the Cyclades and the Dodecanese. There is no over-tourism in any island of the southern Aegean, and those of you saying that there is, showing me pictures on the 20th of July, we can go together in the same area on the 20th of March, of April, of December, of November, where you can see nobody, so you can't talk about over-tourism. I was in an international conference in the US a few days ago. I replied on 24 questions, and 23 were about fake news that we traffic for us. I didn't know how to reply, and I was saying, don't deal with what we say to each other, because Greeks have this thing about teasing each other. So there is no over tourism. Apparently, there are dozens of things that we can do in order to organize the inflows better and the number of visitors. And of course, we should discuss, and we do well to discuss, the bearing capacity. We are surveying this bearing capacity now, and we see how difficult it is. There is a climate for average Greeks that the bearing capacity is something that throughout the world has been solved and determined, but nothing is valid. Bearing capacity has is a term that nobody has really agreed with on what it is and what it really is. In each university, in each country, they have a different definition. So now there's an international experiment going on in Greece. I'm not against it, because when in Greece you say something that it is a mainstream and social media, then you are the something else. You're the alien. You're a foreign intelligence stakeholder, whatever. I support what is happening today, the scientific work about bearing capacity, knowingly that it is an international experiment and we do it well. Let me start with Mr. Pikramenos, who is proud for Mykonos and wanted to comment on what Mr. Hadjimarkos said.
So let me ask you. The Council of State has considered against the Constitution previous bills. So we come up without an urban plan. In other words, was it finally rejected? Concerning the decision in 2015, it was annulled for a specific reason, because there wasn't included the view of local authorities. However, if we move forward and we go deeper, this shows that before you do something, and I would agree at this point with all the panelists, because more or less we say the same thing and we agree, but I would agree particularly with something said by Mr. Hadjimarkos. We cannot have horizontal provisions. Each region has its own particularities and specificities, which opens an endless discussion on thousands of construction rules. In Greece, we have 15 different rules. Why can't we simplify things? So, and I wouldn't agree with the case of Mykonos that there are no public administration offices. They exist and they've done lots of work for the coastline, the beaches, and so on and so forth. I'm a practical person, and I agree that we haven't defined properly the bearing capacity, however, term. But when it takes me 3 hours to go to the beach, when I come across, while going there, 10 different buses trying to move in a road of 5 meters width, occupying more than half of the road, plus 20 black vans, 15 of which are illegal. Well, it is clear and obvious that there are some violations and some exaggerations. How many buses, how many black vans can an island tolerate? It's a matter of balance. Everybody needs to be calm and be happy. Tourism come to Mykonos, Greece, to have fun, to stay calm. So we need to come to a balance so that both tourists, hotel owners, the people working in the hotel, the local community may live in peace. And I'm proud, speaking about Mykonos, that I'm the only politician which considers Mykonos a unique place with unique beaches. I love being there. It has a special aura. Once you are there, you can feel it. And Santorini, and I was on a honeymoon in Santorini. Part of the ecological issue and challenge involves the fact that it is not discussed, the bill, with the local community, and the FRA is considered an alienate department. Well, this has changed. We are speaking about our regions. This has changed. There was a similar trend because the archaeological department, as a state department, was operated independently, and there were some clashes. Well, we protect the income of people because we protect a non-renewable developmental dimension. In other words, the archaeological landscape of a place, and we provide new tools to guide development, refurbishments, new museums. So this is a myth which doesn't exist any longer, is not valid any longer, and this, of course, thanks to the state. For example, the resources from the European Union would come and were distributed and they were managed differently, whereas nowadays the region manages the historical stock, creating thus bonds with the people. There's no similar tools for municipalities, however. We have developed program agreements. We cannot intervene in terms of historical stock. However, thanks to those tools, we may involve the representation of local communities. This is important, and we can develop them further. Delos Santorini belongs to the local communities. However, they have a global strength and momentum. By and large, at the end of the day, well, we all have a say, the global community, on how Caldera is managed. Two questions for you, Mr. Giorgio. The measures announced by the government on cruises. On the previous panel, the Prime Minister of Bhutan referred to Santorini and that he personally um, um, would not allow cruises at all in Santorini. Well, how would you comment that? As of 2015, I asked for us, the local authorities, to impose a levy, and our Prime Minister correctly established such fee for cruises. We decided for Santorini, following a meeting of the tourist committee which meets with the representation of businessmen and the municipal council, that every municipality could impose or lift a tax while defining it, and all money would go on infrastructure and their operation locally. I believe that local authorities would be more independent, able to impose levies, and it is reasonable that every location, every area decides on its own concerning such levy. And I was asking that back as of 2015 for the municipal authorities. Concerning infrastructure, Santorini is an island of 76,000 square meters. We are having infrastructure. We need further improvement of those existing. For example, the discussion on the lack of water, drought, and the water. Well, we were prepared, and at this point in time we have no problem in terms of water. We didn't have any problem whatsoever during summer, and we won't be having next summer. However, with the rapid tourist development, nobody can guarantee that in the years to come there won't be any such problem, as the private sector moves more rapidly than the public sector. We follow the initiatives of the private sector, I would say. We were lucky enough in the previous program period to get 51% of the regional program. For basic infrastructure, waste, water, and so on and so forth. However, I believe that no visitor, no tourist visits infrastructure, the infrastructures. Tourists are attracted by the place itself, the landscape, and the more untouched it remains, the stronger the appeal. The infrastructures are necessary. However, they need to keep the scale of the place, of the location. As Mr. Pikramenos mentioned earlier, apologies. Oftentimes, the landscape is wounded violently by the lack of infrastructure. You understand what I mean? Indeed, I do. I do not wish to get into details. It is violently wounded. If there's no waste management plant and so on and so forth, if the wastes are not managed properly, the landscape is wounded. I fully understand what you say. So, but it needs to keep to respect the size and the profile of the landscape, and whatever else is delivered needs to respect the latter. You mentioned earlier the enormous buses crossing settlements and neighborhoods that were constructed only for horses and donkeys, and now a 52-seat bus must cross such road. This is an issue by itself, so we need to improve the infrastructure to supplement them, and of course while respecting the scale of the location. But unfortunately, the public sector follows the private. Mr. Hadjimarkos, the same question. Do you need that more infrastructure is required, or is this a vicious circle? And as this is the last question, and we focus on reimagining tourism, how would you reimagine the future of tourism? Well, let me discuss first infrastructure. Indeed, they must be upgraded today, and they must be built in a way and with a purpose to meet the needs of the inhabitants of every island. In other words, Kufonisi is not the island of 350 people, is the island of 7,000 people, 14th of July. So it needs infrastructures that can resist, that can meet the challenges, because this is the period of demand. In 40 days, the capacity. So um, would that be worth such an investment just for 40 days? Of course it does. Observing the same rationale. In this country, we claim that we say that you can't be asking such an amount for an island of 350 people. What is this? 350 people. We are speaking about 7, 8, 9,000 people on the 25th of July. This is the population that must be covered and served on that date. Lack of water. The Prime Minister of Bhutan correctly mentioned, okay, you are a bit, you have adopted a bit this Bhutan style. I'm convinced. But you are not wearing a uniform. So 51% of the available resources for the region were was made available to deal with of water. And this is the case in most islands. This is how we dealt and we managed drought. However, when in the public debate and we put things into the correct order and dimension, those who love us a lot are operating against us, work against us. And I do not understand it when we ask for funding to resolve once and for good the water issue. Roads, it must be taken into account that roads has a population of 560,000 to 600,000 people on the island. If you give a person money to feed 4 members, you can't complain that another one of 20 members is starving. Of course we can resolve the lack of water issue. We are very inventive, we work hard, we are top in the construction of public works and the rate of absorption of resources. However, I repeat that in this picture of the public opinion, we need to add all the necessary elements. So let us take the problems from the beginning. Is it or is it not a major problem that the demographic problem, is it or it is not the top issue? So we have a census, and it is clear But beyond the quantitative, let's see the qualitative elements, the demographic qualitative elements. By far the best. Productive age, births, again, South Aegean. So we must be doing something good. All indicators are on the top, are the highest. We are discussing reimagining tourism, which we did, we have been doing rather. There are good things happening in the South Aegean. Together with the greatest sustainability project in our uh, country, the mobility project in Stipalia, the first island, zero carbon footprint, Chalki, the first island, not just in Greece but in the world, which is of zero waste, 91% the record. By using the waste, we do not in Tilos, this is the island, and the last one, the Rhodos corridor, because we want to turn this great destination into a sustainable one. And let us conclude with this, please, because the future shall be highly demanding, and we need to adapt, we need to adjust, but while recognize our debt to the next generations, and that somebody needs to apologize before them, even though we are not those responsible for everything bad in place, and give them back what we should have given. And in the south of the Aegean, we do work honestly, and we are not a place where the law is repeatedly violated. We are tired of reading and hearing such lies. We need to have true allies. There are different agendas for the islands, and let me tell you publicly that there's a public agenda for the islands, as it is the case concerning all topics and issues. Topics are our identity is there and involves such features as well, meaning we're working for a differentiated tourism in the future, for a sustainable tourism in the future, and we do that, we deliver that in practice.
Πέρασαν 2 μέρες με πάρα πολύ.
So we've had 2 days with lots of discussions, lots of information. We'll hear the results by Mr. Vasilakis, Mr. Papachelas successively. I think that with everything we've heard, what I understand, well, I have my best friend is a handyman in Sekinos. He was building with stone and clay, and he was asking me, what is a home? I say, home is the place where, you know, the stars, the land, and everything. He says, no, the place that is your home is the place where they know you. Because they know you, your father, your grandfather, they will know your son. So, in summary, I'd like to ask our host, would like to thank him once again for this fantastic place that he let us in. And he will give us his closing remarks. Okay, well, I don't think I can reach any conclusions where everyone will consent, to which everyone will consent. And I'm certain that my conclusions will not be the same as the ones of Mr. Papachelas. Anyway, after 2 days of discussions, I understand that the dynamic of tourism is still there. This dynamic raises a lot of concerns about how the development of tourism will still keep on being positive. And we are concerned about the footprint and the impact of tourism in the broader condition of the country when it comes to zoning, unemployment, financials, etc. I believe that all problems converge. What do I mean by that? In order to have a request for the Greek product, we must have a very good relation between value for money and experience, customer experience who comes to our destinations. We This means that there are small, medium, and large scale challenges that we need to face with a perspective that responds to the needs of both the place and the visitor. So, I'm sure that Mr. Pikramenos would like to go to a beach in Mykonos in less than 3 hours. I could lend him my little boat if he wanted. Um, and then we do not answer to another question. If we make a road, yes, we will improve the traffic, but maybe that means that we'll need another 20% increase of traffic on the island, and maybe this is wrong. I think that we agree with what the Prime Minister said, not that we want less people in Greece, but that we are interested to have a better mix regarding spend per visitor and the absolute compared to the absolute rate pace. We do not all agree whether we want more or less visitors. We certainly want people spending more, and we want the footprint to be better for the local economy. It's a positive that even in Santorini, as the mayor said, where there is a diversification, because we have people staying in luxurious hotels or have bought houses compared to somebody who is there for a few hours, like 10,000 people coming out of the cruise ship. How one is changing the experience lived by the other. I think we don't only need some expensive charge on these cruise tourists or anything that could provide some management. There are challenges that we needed to solve, bearing capacity. We're not very close into determining what it is, but what we know for sure is that we need to have a bigger role to play when it comes to collecting taxes and duties and fees. And yes, there is more complexity in managing all this money if it is on a multi-level and not so much on the central state for part of the profits of the revenues. But then it's easier to ask for a local positive balance, something that is wiser locally. Yes, we wanted to have a zoning plan, but some are going to be shaped centrally, some in a decentralized way, some very locally. And what is development? what is burdening, all that needs to be well balanced. And I think that taxes or fees for development and for the self-regulation, that could also be a solution. Now, talking about the personnel and the growing personnel, I think we didn't do much justice into that. We should have raised this topic a lot more. We talked about sustainability and infrastructure more, but I think we should have talked more about the great need that we have for the tourist sector to train its people, to promote people in the tourist industry. We are in an economy, and I'm happy, and this is positive, that after a very difficult period of recession, 10, 12 years, we have some difficulty. We have a competitivity amongst the various sectors of activity when it comes to the workforce. And yes, for some types of work, we need to bring here people from other countries for certain years, but in order to keep the authenticity and the stance of tourism vis-à-vis other markets, then we should be able to promote our own people um, in a more impressive way. There are some efforts, but maybe not enough to change the general picture. Now, if we've made mistakes or not in the country with regard to development, what I understood is that the mistakes in development have to do with all kinds of development, whether that is a residential development, whether that is the implementation of legal provisions. And I think most of it has to do with the organization of the Greek state, with the compliance of Greek citizens with the law. I think we should focus on the better operation of the Greek state, meaning having assessments, better trainings, more mobility, better compensations depending on their efficiency. If that starts working this way, then I believe that apart from all the digital efforts that showed more efficiency for the country, I think that there we should have the big reversal. We cannot privatize the whole public sector. We should not. We must not. We cannot only make concession of airports. We need to have the services that check the control of the airports. The same for the urban planning, for example, or constructions. So this has to do with tourism, but with all other sectors. Maybe we don't want to talk about it, but it's a central part of the conversation. Let me also say that although I'm not a very optimistic person, more of a realistic, I'd say, I see that yes, in tourism, the development that we have is not just because Greece had some internal degradation, but because the majority of Greek tourist businesses learned to work better and produced much better services in all levels. And this is why we see very successful examples in big units, medium units, small hotel units, and we also see diversification of profitability and development depending on the quality of the effort. So I think that Greek tourism is more mature, there is more margin for maturity, and we believe that all that interacts very well with other sectors of activity. It's not just cultivation, it's not just energy, it's also farming, it's a lot of things that can go hand in hand with tourism, even health services, a number of things that we must learn to co-exploit and explain that we all grow together so that Greece may not happen, we may not become a Bhutan, because we're a lot more in a number and in visitors, but we should be prouder and happier about the work that's been done. I do believe and I do agree that we should not only talk about what is negative, we should also speak about the positive, and we should make more things happen and judge ourselves through what is happening.
Κύριε Παπαχελά, έχετε το... Έχετε το λόγο να συνοψίσετε τώρα 2 μέρες, οπότε...
Κύριε Πρόεδρε, φίλε κύριε Πρόεδρε, είστε από τους λίγους ανθρώπους που έχω δει ότι έχει μπλέξει.
Well, considering that a person is politician without getting involved essentially in politics, well, I'm taken aback. Needless to wrap up, because everything has been said, I was trying to understand that, let us be happy. And I was thinking, how could we make the government happy? Well, we could stop writing about South Aegean. However, let me add something more. It is an illusion in the social era, media era, that unless we write about wrong things, that this is the only way to protect a place, because bad news may circulate via a different path. So we live in a totally different epoch. 2 words on tourism. Topic we are passionate. Oftentimes we are in conflict, and we are not paid always to be popular. Let me remind you that. I believe that it's very important that we all understand that tourism is indeed something very important. We are pleased to see the tourism success. We've been fighting for that during the pandemic, and well, we were paid justice when after the pandemic, when the tourism skyrocketed. And I believe that we should be all proud and be on the same boat. We are very pleased to see the private sector in tourism being open, being cosmopolitan, and this is very important, extremely important, because we've seen Yanos Paraschis and different other presidents, chairmen, having political views with us today, and they are prepared to put forward solutions. We are against piracy, easy profit, keeping location hostages, which is the case with some collective communities, and of course against all those phenomena that may wound the landscape, the picture, and the brand of tourism itself. We need to be open and honest when discussing those topics. And we need, of course, infrastructure, more rules that need to be in line with the profile of every location. We can't have a one-size-fits-all model, and still rules wherever they must be observed, and rules concerning limitations and restrictions, be them relevant to cruisers or whatever else. We need to understand how we can protect our brand, because we want all years to come to be successful, and this is something to be conquered. Our Prime Minister said something very important when I asked him, what would you like to avoid? What is your vision? And he answered, I want to avoid being 10 years ahead, claiming that we have seen that we have destroyed our landscape, our mountains, our islands, the wealth, the natural wealth we are having, beyond the share and the sacrificing everything, for easy profit. So at this point, allow me to thank you all. Mrs. Purnara, who's together with Mr. Ellis, are on the top of eKathimerini. Thank Aegean, who made available this extremely beautiful venue for this conference. And I would like to thank particularly the people who have worked to make this event possible. Alexia Koroneou from eKathimerini, together with Nikos Papalexopoulos and the entire eKathimerini team. Ilias Bellos, responsible for the content. Myrto Bezoula, Giorgos Kosmidi and Natalia Christodoulou, invisibles there, the back, who prepared this extraordinary setting and production. Next year hopefully will be more optimistic, discussing again problems, however, having already in place certain solutions. Thank you.